The Snow White movie is finally out in theaters. The movie follows Snow White, a princess played by Rachel Zegler, who lives in a kingdom far away, whose evil stepmother, the evil queen, played by Gal Gadot, banishes her to the woods to have her killed after learning that she is not the fairest of them all. And when she gets to the woods, she meets a quirky band of 7 dwarves, as well as a bandit named Jonathan, and a group of 7 other people who help her turn against the queen and fight back to get her kingdom back. Now, ever since this movie was announced, it was steeped in controversy, and understandably so. Rachel Zegler herself said that the movie from 1937, the original Snow White, is dated, and understandably so it is. The movie came out almost 100 years ago. And people have been pretty mean about Rachel Zegler online. And I think it's very easy to do that since she's the face of this new movie, since she's been pretty outspoken about her feelings towards it. But I do think the idea that aspects of this movie are dated is very accurate. It's very hard to make an accurate Snow White reboot in 2025 when so many of the ideas present just wouldn't work, not only from a standpoint of being politically correct, but just structurally. The animated film, which was 81 minutes, wouldn't really work today. Rachel Zegler talked in prior interviews to the film being released how the original prince stalked her and just rescued her and wasn't really a character. This is true. I do wish they didn't cut out the song "Someday My Prince Will Come." I think there's a way to properly integrate that. But it is true that the idea of a woman waiting to be rescued by a man, I could see how people would not be happy with that concept, but I think the song itself is still very iconic and does warrant being in the film. Having said that, changing things like the prince from just some random guy who has no lines to actually being a bandit who Snow White befriends, who actually forms kind of chemistry with her, and then they turn against the queen in the end, that actually is a pretty good idea. And I do think it's important to give the prince some kind of character, because in the original, he really just rides by the gates, Snow White sees him, and then at the end of the movie, without saying any lines, he just kisses her while she's asleep, and rescues her and brings her to his castle. Like, it's such a fairy tale, but as a movie, it doesn't really work, especially if you're going to do that now. Just from a structural standpoint, having a character who we can actually get behind is a smart move. And that doesn't mean I liked this movie. I actually really did not like this movie. I thought it was very bland. Visually, this thing was repugnant. And I did think the acting was pretty terrible, especially Gal Gadot. She's hot, yes, but she cannot play any character. She got lucky with Wonder Woman and Batman vs. Superman, where she really just didn't have to do anything except look cool, do a couple cool poses, and that was why she became a breakout star. Seeing her now in movies like Heart of Stone, even in Justice League or Death of the Nile, and now Snow White, you can see she's not really a great actress. Even when she has to sing, there's no charisma, there's no nuance or bravado. She just kind of is flat the entire way through. And that's saying something when the original Evil Queen is probably one of the scariest characters I've ever watched in a childhood movie. I really was scared of her in the original Snow White, but here, she's really just not menacing at all. The costume design does more heavy lifting than Gal Gadot herself. And Rachel Zegler is fine. I really think she's an excellent singer. I think she's great at what she does, but I don't think, her performance is anything special. I do think the movie itself, though, does, kind of hamper on that. There's a scene where the huntsman takes her to the woods to be killed, which is in the original, and I get that it's a kid's movie, so they don't want to make it too dramatic, but her acting in that scene is just hilarious to me. It's just funny how she has, her mouth open and she looks shocked while he's got, a knife to her. It's very campy, but I think unintentionally so. And the visual design of the film, too, is disastrous. The thing is, with the original Snow White from 1937, they were doing a lot of stuff that had never been done before. I think the original film does have some things in it that aren't really, politically correct. Like if we talk about 7 dwarfs living in a cave together, living in a house. Peter Dinklage made comments back in 2022, a long time ago, and he didn't even really mean to say anything negative. A lot of angry internet people are saying, oh, Peter Dinklage doesn't want people to work, he wants to hog all the jobs for himself. That's not true. He really just doesn't like this perception that, little people can only play these roles where they're dwarves. Why can't they play roles where they're actually, the main character, where their role doesn't have to do with them being a dwarf. I understand that perspective. And the movie doesn't do anything to fix that point of view. In the movie, the dwarves are all CGI. If you're going to do that, you might as well have cast smaller actors for the role. It doesn't make any sense not to. On top of that, there are 7 other characters who are introduced in this movie. These 7 random bandits, and I'm honestly very curious if they were originally the 7 dwarfs, but the movie decided to abandon that route in post-production and go with the original 7 dwarves. And honestly, they never should have cut any form of 7 dwarfs in the first place. It's integral and iconic to the story. I don't know how they would have done the hi-ho and the silly song and the whistle while we work with these 7 random characters we have in the forest. All 7 of those characters feel incredibly forced. It completely takes you out of the movie because not only were they never there to begin with, but even more so than just having 7 dwarf characters, it's this diverse group of strangers who have no identity. They don't have characters or names I'm even going to remember. I only remember Jonathan because he's like the leader of them, the love interest to Snow White. Having him make sense there, but having these 7 other characters, it just feels very forced. And I get that they're supposed to be his friends or whatever, but the way they just kind of come into the plot so late, like more than an hour and 10 minutes in, it really just takes you out of the film and feels forced. And there are a lot of elements to this movie that feel like they are trying to correct the mistakes, you could say, of the 1937 film. I wouldn't even say they're mistakes. I would just say they're elements of the 1937 movie that just don't fit in today's movie-going society or society at all. Like how they refer to the bandit character played by Jonathan as in a liminal area where motives and actions are not explicitly defined. Like there's a moment where Doc says that because they say, oh, he's a thief, he robbed from the queen, but they want to make him sympathetic. So they say, well, he's actually, doing it because he's starving, so maybe he's not a bandit. Like the fact that they have to go out of their way to explain everything and make everything feel just or politically correct is very distracting. And honestly, it's not a fun part of the movie at all. And the thing with the dwarves doesn't really work because not only are they uncanny valley CG dwarves, they just don't have characters. Whereas if you look at the original movie from 1937, the dwarves in that film were just adorable to look at. And also, the movie itself was beautiful. That movie relied on colors, the beautiful animation. Even the entire mining hi-ho sequence is gorgeous to look at. But here, I was really excited because I love the music from the original Snow White. It's iconic. But it just doesn't work here because visually there's nothing to look at. Everything is very bland and dulled down. I want to compare it to what people were saying about Wicked and Wizard of Oz, how the Wicked movie was a little bit more neutral compared to Wizard of Oz, which was very technicolor and bright. But there's such a difference because Wicked is actually very enjoyable and visually pleasant to look at. Snow White is not, and the story is absolutely terrible here. It's just a film adaptation that doesn't translate well into live action, and especially in this way. I kind of like the new ending they went with instead of everything just wrapping up very quick where the witch or queen, whatever, falls off a cliff and dies. They actually have this whole taking back the kingdom sequence, which I had spoiled in the trailer, so I kind of knew was coming. But it just feels a bit too neat, like everything is wrapped up with this bow. And all of the elements that make up this product just don't work. And I really did want to like this movie. I do like the songs. I really love, the colors, but you can't really replicate that in this film. I really wanted to like the camp of Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler together, but it just does not translate overall to a movie that in 2025 is an entertaining blockbuster, especially even for children. I don't think they're going to be entertained because of how random this film is. The original 1937 movie works because it's beautifully animated, and kids can watch it and like that type of animation. Plus, it's very short, it's 81 minutes, it has a bunch of great songs, and here, it just doesn't have that. They cut some songs out. This movie isn't very beautifully made at all, and it's pretty messy. It's like having a loaf of bread with all these moldy pieces in it. You have to pick out those moldy pieces to be able to enjoy the very few things that are there, which are really just some songs. So overall, while I did think that this movie, was very controversial going into it, I knew people would hate it, there are some very valid reasons to dislike this movie. You can adapt some movies. I think, a Tangled adaptation can be very well done. There isn't a lot you have to like navigate around with that or cut stuff out or, edit or change. But I think because the original movie has so much controversy that, changing it today just doesn't work. It doesn't kind of work and takes away the heart of the movie in doing so. So let me know what you guys thought of Snow White. It is a very strange, surreal film to see in 2025. I saw this movie in IMAX. The aspect ratio does not change. It was just fun to see on a very big screen. Honestly, I laughed when Dopey spoke. It was just hilarious because there's just so much random shit put in here to try and update it, to edit it. I get that what they're trying to do. Disney has an agenda. They also have, a bit of a heart with, let's try and make everyone feel welcome. But it's so in your face. It's not genuine at all. Let me know what you guys think, though. Thank you so much for watching.